Well, we spend a lot of time with the undergraduates and postgraduates in the university context. We don't get as much time to connect to the classroom as we would like to. So our initial drive really was to be able to connect our students here to kids in classrooms. So we've done various different activities where the students can have an opportunity to play out some of the theory that we talk about in our classrooms here in that classroom context. So we've done some elicitation exercises, for example, where they could ask the children what they know about a particular topic. And so we've looked at the theory here, then we get the children's voices. Always important to get the children's voices as often as we can. So it gave us access to classrooms. That was our first objective.
Now today we're actually going to be talking about rocks in space, which might seem a little bit strange because perhaps most of you don't really think about rocks when you think of space, do you?
Yeah.
No, not really. So I want you to think really carefully about the answer to this question. Why do you think I'm so interested in thinking about rocks on other planets? What can we learn
Stoke Park
from rocks?
School we were working with today were part of our original partner for the TDA project. So they were looking already at that student relationship in terms of school experience. So we could draw on a school who had video conferencing experience. The children had a bit of confidence with video conferencing, and in a way that benefited us because then we could initiate our students into the system and we weren't all novices at exactly the same time.
Maybe if we find rocks like that on another planet, maybe we could even find signs of life there. Who knows? Maybe you guys are going to make that discovery.
Video conferencing as part of a package into today, and so it would complement with practical workshops, an outside expertise workshop, and then the link back to school. So we've tried again to make sure that it's part of a sequence and part of embedded rather than a one-off experience for the kids.
I was in Key Stage 1 in my first placement and didn't get much opportunity to do much science. So today gave us a really good opportunity to have some slightly older kids in and to actually get some hands-on science experience.
It feels like we haven't worked with the children for such a long time, so to be able to work with small groups on a subject like this, and again I'll be in Year 5 on my next teaching placement, so to be able to get a bit of a taster of what it's like with Year 5s has been really valuable.
I think people are slightly nervous in terms of technological barriers. Again, it's normally somebody who's relatively sort of IT, either confident or give it a go, that will overcome that. And sometimes as well there's a certain nervousness about the whole idea of appearing on screen. To be honest though, once we've put students up or children, that disappears really very quickly and focuses on the task in hand, the question, the activity or whatever, and they get, as I say, they go back into role and I think and forget, because the conversation goes with such ease that I don't think that really sort of lasts for very long.
We need to have enthusiasm. I try very hard to be enthusiastic even when the technology isn't playing as well as it should be, because I think it would be easy for teachers to back off. If they saw it failing, they would give up. They don't have busy classrooms, they don't have time for technology that doesn't work. It's got to be something that's there when they need it, they can trust it, they know that it will be there working properly, because as soon as it fails, the children turn off. I mean, they're not interested any longer, so you have to make sure it's working. It is crucial to make it work.
It definitely is a team effort because we all have our various different roles, and IT services here and Kathy in her role as primary technical assistant. Then I think it's really important that people had that enthusiasm. We were all willing to give it a go. You've heard we've had various different technical things to overcome, but that's another thing for the students because they've had experience of using this type of kit, and we've had some feedback, and they've been into school, they've seen the kit in school, and they were able to say, yeah, I could say that I've used that, I know how that works, I've tried that out on an activity. So they're having experience of classrooms, but they're also having experience of kit, which is relatively new.
This is the first time I've used it, so I'm a brand new person to this particular technology. I can see that there is a purpose for it, but to me at the moment it doesn't seem reliable enough to use on a regular basis. So if you actually set time aside for it and it goes wrong, then that time is lost and you don't get that time again with the students. So I have positive and negative feelings about it. I think the students benefit enormously from it. And it's great to get interaction with schools without having actually to go into the schools, so that they can work with universities and you can see children in action in that way. But I'm not happy yet with the reliability of it.
There was supposed to be preparation with video conferencing in mind. We were supposed to link up with Stoke Park before today. Unfortunately, there were some technical glitches on that day, but luckily not today. So the important stuff was done, but I guess that was done because the problems were rectified last week. So.
Time-wise is difficult in terms of getting them much training, but really it's intuitive. It's really interesting to see how quickly they swap roles. So sometimes we've had students before a video conference, they'll be just as excited as the kids. They'll do the waving to each other from one location to another, and then once they've got over that waving, as soon as we go live to the school, it's been great. You know, there they are, they're professionals, they're back in role, and they put down their professional hat then, and they get into their teaching role. So in terms of the technicalities of it, no, we haven't really. We've actually concentrated so much more on the teaching and learning. It's important that there is an expertise, but at the same time, this whole idea of relationship and roles and interactivity is something we've worked really hard to keep in.
Can you find Heather's Can you find Heather's in the... you got the same... Yeah.
Which got a new one?
What did it say? What was one of the first things you said? For a mate of mine. That's exactly what it said first. What about the second one?
So we've just, as tutors, some of the main things for us have been to look at it as embedded in a sequence of work. So it's not a one-off. It's not, here's an outside expert is going to profess on a certain topic. It's been part of a sequence, always been part of a sequence. We've also had various different things in terms of the rocks workshop that we looked at today, whereby we might have practical artefacts. So we're not taking away the practical element of science. We always want things that the children will be handling. We've done various different things where they've had to solve a problem, look at an artefact, do some feedback. We've done some more work with some undergraduates, and we linked across to the Eden project in Cornwall, which again allowed us to have lots of objects on a table in front, and the people at the video conference end had the same objects. So we knew we were actually looking at the same thing, and you could keep that interactivity. And I think that's what has excited us. I was in no way did I realise quite how interactive the relationship would be until we got going.
I think interaction is the most useful part of it. That's what makes it different to other forms of videos and watching television. I think the whole key is the fact that you can interact with the people, with the experts.
They get the chance to actually see what they look like and how they are reacting on the television screen. And I think that's always beneficial, because then you can sort of criticise yourself and sort of see how you might do something better. I think it's also good that they can actually have a conversation with children who are really interested and really involved in what's going on. It gives them a huge amount of feedback, which is very positive, and it helps them with their course.
I've really enjoyed looking at rocks and doing the soil challenge, which we did this morning. Yeah, it's really exciting, and I like looking at listening to all the questions answered and talking to the Year 6.
I like learning all about like where you could find rocks on like Jupiter's moons and stuff.
I really enjoyed learning about the comets in the video conference. In the video conference, I like talking to somebody from another place which is quite far away. If you're doing a video conference, you can actually hear them and look at the place you're in.
You can actually be more interactive, and then you don't have to you can talk to people and then they can respond to you, instead of you just watching a movie and then you can't do any interacting.
I think you can gain more from that than you could do just with a website or just with pictures on the interactive whiteboard, because it's sort of real and they can follow instructions and do what he's asking them to do, and come up with answers and things. So
When they were talking about the rocks in space, space is obviously a very abstract subject. We don't know what it's like in space, but to be able to interact face to face with an expert, I think really gave the children an insight into what might be going on there.
The fossils and stuff like the
Exactly, by finding things like the fossils. Can we have a big round of applause? That was the right answer.
It really is like he's in the room with you. It was amazing to see them interacting with him, and hello Scott and bye bye Scott. It was excellent.
Some of the things that we're trying to develop now is observing lessons in the classroom, and in doing so they see again that is very live for us. It's not like having a DVD that we've watched 6 times before. We're not there to be following through a set model or sequence because we don't quite know what the children are going to ask. We don't quite know what issues are going to arise, and that for us is a very powerful learning experience, quite a risky learning experience, but I think for them that puts us on a much more of a collaborative footing of together we're watching something and together we're discussing something happening. But what we're here to do is having that privilege of observing a learning interaction, and that's the exciting bit for us. Okay, well again we wanted it to be a sequence. The sequence activities is really important. So when we do something like this, the first part of a sequence of 3 is to meet the children on screen, first of all, to be able to say, you know, we're the University of Winchester, you'll be coming to visit us next week. Can we find out a little bit about what you've been doing with your topic? Can you tell us a little bit about what you already know on a topic? So that we'll then have an elicitation exercise. Again, it's important for the students because then there's a lot in terms of their theory of reinforcing the idea of starting where the children are. They were looking at things to do with soils, you know, vocabulary, techniques, lots of things to do with skills and process work. And then they went into the rocks workshop. And again, the rocks workshop, similar, we were to look at permeability of rocks. And again, the students planned the task, got the kit, decided on the pace. And again, we're looking across various different things that the school had begun, but we continued in another location with different sort of kit that they could use. And that's where the video conferencing was really, here's an expert, here's another context. They could then use the skills, the questions that they'd been looking at to apply it to a whole new context. And in science that's so important that the children are actually applying and using their skills in cross-context rather than just moving on to the next thing. That's the beauty of today, where you can have a carousel of related activities. The thing as well that the students have seen, the teachers working with their children. So you don't only get to see an expert working with the children, you get to see the teachers working with their own classes of children. And relationships, practical relationships, pace and tone and contact and behaviour management is all part of that package, I think, for the students as well.
There was loads of soil in there. What else was in with our soil that made lots of smaller parts? What did we say? Something beginning with S. Sand. So we had lots of grains of sand in our last one. Where do you think that one might have been?
Although they had a main learning objective, the students could choose how to satisfy that learning objective. So they did planning, they talked through the planning with the tutors, they collected their kit, they talked about pace, resources, recording, etc. And then they were in pairs. And we had 2 students doing the teaching role and 2 students doing the observer role. I think weren't always as far back as observers as they might have seemed this morning. It was very difficult. Everyone, of course, wanted to sort of get hands-on with that.
I think it worked really well having the groups of adults, but also people in the background milling around. So, I mean, we had a disaster with our scales and our rocks experiment that needed to be fixed, otherwise the whole day was going to be a disaster. But that was fixed pretty quickly by science technicians there, and I think it was a really good community of learning. And I think the video conferencing helped with that. The man at the Space Centre making it into a competition, and you felt a little bit of pride of your kids were getting the right question right, and you're like, they've done well.
The students can see their university time and their school time as quite separate. They can see the tutors sometimes as being rather separate from school. So again, yes, to have that, I mean that's the business we're in. It's that interaction, the learning interactions, teachers, children, students. And it allows us to do that planning together. It allows us to celebrate, if you like, that student professionalism, because the theory is one thing, but actually to talk about something that happened in front of us, the things the children said, the things the children did, it allows us to make those links, theoretical links, behaviour management links, organisational links, and assessment links as well. Yeah.
there's much more scope than just science. I think it's the whole world of communications, for instance. I think that's a big thing, and it's the world that we live in these days. It's a world full of communication, and I love the idea of being able to link up around the world, not just staying within the confines of our own country, but being able to go into other countries is a fantastic potential for children, to get them to really understand the world they live in.
I can see that if I'd had this particular facility in school, I would have used it to connect with other places. And I have cousins and nieces who've been to school, obviously, who live in another part of the world, in Australia, and they have used video conferencing to support charitable work that they've done in Thailand. So they've been able to connect. They couldn't travel to Thailand because it's far too expensive to do it, but they could have connected with the school who they were actually working with, and one school in Thailand fed back to the school in Australia and vice versa. And it was a continuous thing. I think the advantage is using it over a long period of time, so you can really make a connection with that school or with a number of schools.
I think you could use it in every subject, to be honest. I think you could use it across the board. Yeah, today was good in science, but I think you could use it in history and perhaps in geography if you were going outside the classroom, things like that. So there's quite a few opportunities to be able to use it across the board.
Today was absolutely brilliant for showing them what they could achieve through their science, but I think you could use it for history, for English, for geography, all opportunities outside the classroom.
I don't think science is necessarily the obvious first choice, because as I say, we wanted to preserve that practical element. But anywhere across the curriculum, absolutely, to make those links, to allow us to... We're using in one of our sustainability modules, so again we've got science and geography specialists working together to link up with places that we wouldn't normally be able to discuss some quite live issues and prevent us travelling back and forth to various different places. So again, we've linked across in some of the other modules too. But cross-curricular, yeah, I don't think it belongs to any one particular place. What would like to happen is that we can have the video conferencing suite in something like the Strike Lecture Theatre. So you could increase the audience, you could have a live link-up where you could have, a larger amount of students there. We'd like to increase our lesson observations so that we can do, again, more of that live talk around, not necessarily model lessons, but real lessons that are really happening out there. We're also linking across into various different experts, so we've done interviews with school curriculum leaders, for example, and we're increasing our net of providers so that we can then increase our net and to bring people in from various different outside agencies then to increase the students' contact with possibilities. There's a lot of potential, but it is early days, and I think we're excited, but we're cautious in terms of the learning and teaching relationship to get it right.
Well, I think video conferencing is just at the beginning of a very useful technology. I've only been involved with it since last September, so I'm on a steep learning curve. But in that short time, I've seen it used in a variety of different ways, and this is the first time I've seen it really used with the pupils in this way. But I can see great benefits. I do think that there's a few more steps to go. For instance, today it was great at the Space Centre, but there was potential there. When we were talking about volcanoes, we could have seen a volcano erupting in Hawaii. We could have even had a webcam on somewhere in the world, which would have brought it even more alive to the children here. And I think that's what I mean by at the beginning of things. People are using the technology, but I can see the great potential for a lot further. I think we're only at the very beginning of it all.
I don't think people use it as a gimmick because it costs quite a lot of money to do. So you're not going to put all that time and effort into setting something up like this and then just have it as a one-off and forget about it. I think it's got a role, and I think it can be used very effectively. To get girls interested in rocks and soil and get them involved in doing rocks and soil experiments is really good, because that's what I would like to have more of in the future. Young girls sort of being interested in science, not necessarily going on to do it, but being able to comment on science in the same way as boys do. And I think having this additional bit of a clean way of approaching science, the video conference is nice and clean, they're not getting dirty, but they're being able to interact, is one way of encouraging girls into it.
I think it would be good to be able to speak to tutors back in the university if you're in school, but I also think it's quite a good opportunity for them to observe you teaching, things like that. So I think that would be quite a good way forward. And then you get your feedback straight away, so that's quite good as well.
As a trainee teacher, I mean, we could definitely be used for observations and linking with other teacher trainees or other pupils on the PGCE. And also within schools, it could be used for debating purposes. Maybe schools that don't have minibuses or aspects to travel, a video conferencing suite gives them the opportunities to link with other schools and link with other museums that maybe funding wouldn't allow them to.
I think it can really be used in other subjects, yes. One of the children earlier said how it can be used to help them with their French, which I thought was a really good idea, using actually interacting with the country when they were speaking. And I think also in subjects like geography, when we have to teach distant places, again that's quite abstract because you can't actually go to these places, but perhaps if it were possible to have a video conferencing over there, then it would really be a bit more interactive and give them a bit more of a realistic picture of what things are like over there.
Our world is a world where IT is there all of the time, and I think it's the IT world needs to meet maybe a bit more with the educational world to really understand what each needs from the other, because I think maybe they don't in all cases, but I think they're starting to.